Hi, I'm Mike Cross. Welcome to Reed Gold Mine. Been a lot of history made here. First proven discovery of gold in the United States. Most important gold mine in America for 20 years. Nobody really knows how much gold's been found here. They used to measure the big nuggets in pounds, not ounces. And what happened here first started a whole gold mining industry in North Carolina. Here, this is the metal. When you find it, it looks about like this. It's almost twice as heavy as lead and so soft you can bend it with your fingers. Strange stuff. Most folks go a little crazy trying to find it. But the fellow this mine's named for didn't start out looking for gold. John Reed was born in Germany over 200 years ago. When he was a young man, he signed up as a mercenary to fight for British pay in a foreign country. So John Reed came to America as a Hessian soldier during the Revolutionary War. Near the end of the war, Reed deserted the British, settled in Piedmont, North Carolina, where a lot of other Germans had settled. Well, it was only natural that he'd want to start a farm and a family, so I guess you could say this place came to be John Reed's pretty much by accident. But the biggest accident of all occurred years later when Reed was a middle-aged man and they'd made Cabarrus a county. As the story goes, it was one Sunday morning, early in the spring of 1799. John and his wife Sarah had gone to church, but their 12-year-old son Conrad and one of his brothers and a sister had other plans for this particular day. They'd decided they were going to go bow and arrow fishing down on the Little Meadow Creek.
There, Conrad, there. Shoot, shoot.
I missed.
What's that, Conrad?
I don't know, but it sure is heavy.
It's pretty. Let's go show Papa. Maybe he will know. Let's go.
There's Papa!
Papa, stop! Papa, look what Conrad's found.
I found it in the creek, Papa.
It's pretty.
Bitte. Was ist denn das für ein Stein? Schwer. Metallisch. Hier. Now let's go. Komm, Liebling.
Nobody could identify Conrad's rock, but it did make a good doorstop at the family cabin.
Go.
3 years later, when John Reed had to go east on farm business, he took the doorstop with him. A Fayetteville jeweler not only identified the rock as gold, he also melted it down to a 17-pound ingot and asked Reed to name his price for the metal. John Reed struck a hard bargain. He sold the ingot for $3.50. By 1803, the Reed family knew more about gold. John Reed went into partnership with some local men, and after the crops were in, they all worked Little Meadow Creek. They didn't know how those gold nuggets and grains got in the creek, but they did know how to dig up the creek muck and wash it. The sand and mud rinsed away, the gold settled in the pan. In 3 years of part-time work, they made nearly $40,000 with their picks and frying pans, and the unpaid work of some black slaves. The biggest find ever recorded at John Reed's place was made by a black named Peter. His nugget weighed 28 pounds. It took years for other Piedmont farmers to get interested in part-time gold mining, but a lot more of them started when the price of cotton took a nosedive. They all worked placer gold, the kind that had washed into the creeks. Some used bigger contraptions to separate gold from creek muck. Some even began using liquid mercury to trap the little specks. And if they weren't sure about a big nugget, well, gold bites soft, not gritty. 1825. About 20 miles northeast of the Reed place, Matthias Beringer discovered something new.
I can't hardly believe it myself. Well, yesterday I was working that stream on the back of my place. Those of you that ain't never worked a creek don't know how it is. Picking a while, then running mud a while, all for a few specks, and if you get lucky, maybe you'll find a piece as big as your little nail. Anyhow, sudden like, no more gold at all. None. Stopped, like it had run out. And then I seen some of that white rock over on the creek bank. Strange looking it being there. Now go over and I pick at it. And glory be, I come on a nest of gold.
Gold in the ground, in veins of white quartz rock. The gold rush was on. People in creeks, people digging creek banks in the tops of hills. Men, women, and children working ore for gold. Pits became shafts. Outsiders brought in money and know-how for underground mining. Gold was discovered in over a dozen North Carolina counties, and they found not just gold, but silver, copper, and zinc besides. Dig, drill, blast, bring up the rock, break it, crush it, separate out the gold. A lot of the gold was made into jewelry, and a lot of it was used for Piedmont money. But coins were easier to handle than dust. In 1831, the state sent $250,000 in gold to the Federal Mint in Philadelphia. A German named Beckler started his own mint in Burke County, and in 8 years did $3 million worth of business. Finally, a branch of the Federal Mint opened in Charlotte. Gold mining was hard work. It was done by native sons, by Cornishmen from England's tin mines, Spaniards from Mexican silver lodes. Investors bought get-rich-quick gold stock and then came to the mines to work their dreams alongside aristocratic European engineers. The miners brought a new kind of life to North Carolina. It wasn't all good. John Reed's son-in-law, George Barnhart, a businessman and a founder of the Gold Hill Mine in next-door Rowan County.
Yeah. Right smart activity at the Reed for the war between the states. My daddy-in-law kept on farming, though. Old John Reed never was convinced gold mining was an honest living. I guess you might say the mine was sort of backwards. The family run it mostly, and we didn't even start vein mining until 31. Then in 34, after Conrad died, I was appointed superintendent. Well, the family got into a gall-darn argument about who was to share in a big nugget. Well, sir, George Reed, he got mad and went to court and got the judge to close the mine. And it stayed closed near 10 years. Late 30s, gold mining sort of fell off. The national panic hit and business turned sour. Couldn't get them Yankee companies to put their money down here. Of course, the fact that placer gold up in Burke dried up didn't help none neither. Old John Reed died in 45. He was near 88 years old. He'd made a will for everything to be sold. I was the one to help handle the will. Two of the family, Timothy Reed and Andrew Hartzell, bought the mine and kept it going a few years, but them boys just couldn't pay off the mortgage. Property had to be auctioned off. Caleb White and myself, we bought the darn thing, kept it about a year. Last time Reed mine was ever in the family. Sold it to two Charlotte fellas for a nice profit. A lot of speculating going on then, mostly caused the California rush. In just a few days, the property ended up being owned by an outfit called the Reed Gold and Copper Mining Company of New York City.
Yes, prospects are promising, Mr. Blakely. The fact is that in spite of the haphazard manner of the mine's previous operation, efforts thus far have yielded gold in excess of several $1 million.
Reed Gold and Copper Mining, you say?
Mr. Roebuck, what are you doing?
Quiet! Old Stevens has a hot prospect. Would you believe he's selling gold mining stock?
California?
No, North Carolina.
Oh, it's you. Leave them here.
What purchase do you recommend?
Shall we say 100 shares?
I tell you, Agnes, that stock's going to go up. Triple in value, yes, sir. Old Stevens was right, by George. Mr. Stevens sold me a few shares of a gold mining company that operates the Reed Gold Mine in North Carolina. A fellow named Parts has written it up here. Looks like it's going to be a very successful operation. They've hired a Dr. Possel to run the thing, German. Good mining background. Been employed in a big silver mine in Mexico. He's brought in new equipment for the Reed. 50 horsepower engine, pump, ore crusher. Map here shows they've built an engine house, office, cabin, stables. Very businesslike. Yes, indeed. That Stevens knows his business. Another North Carolina gold mine? First the Reed business, worthless after 2 years, and now this gold hill not 20 miles from the Reed? North Carolina gold indeed.
I believe I can explain. With your permission, please have a seat, Mr. Blakely.
All right. Explain away. Not that it'll do you any good, though. I'm not putting any more money into North Carolina gold.
My letter to you was the result of two recent occurrences. First, a stockholder in this company wishes to liquidate his holdings at well below market value. He is, shall we say, overly disturbed by recent political events affecting our southern neighbors. Second, Mr. Blakely, at almost the same moment the stock offer was made, I secured a copy of the most recent issue of Harper's. And it is an article by a gentleman of my acquaintance named David Strother, known to most by his nom de plume, Port Crayon. Mr. Strother Crayon not only describes a most prosperous gold hill, but, as you can see, illustrates it equally well. The Gold Hill Mining Company has been in business since August 1853, when they undertook operations with a capitalization of $1 million. For a time, they paid a 2% dividend to their stockholders. 2%, Mr. Blakely, every 60 days. Few California companies have done as well.
I don't know.
By 1859, Gold Hill was in
Certainly
trouble,
interesting.
and so was Mr. Blakely, again.
Yes, it is.
The Civil War pretty well put a stop to the gold mining industry in North Carolina. All the Confederates took over the Charlotte Mint and turned out a few gold coins, but that was about it. Then, when the war was over and people finally had time to think about some other things, Some of them thought again of Tar Heel gold. Geologists, businessmen, fast buck artists all agreed that prospects for zinc, copper, silver, and gold in North Carolina were excellent. So, within 15 years after the war had ended, companies were once again buying mines and equipment and selling stock. Down in Charlotte, the Mecklenburg Iron Works was making gold mining equipment and selling it all over the South. One of their better-known products was an ore crusher patterned after the new ones from out west, the California-type stamp mill. These iron stamps weigh 750 pounds each, and as they rise and fall, they crush the ore into dust. This is what's left of the original stamp mill that was used here at the Reed. Machines like this made it possible for miners to process a lot more ore at one time. Then again, the ore was getting poorer, so they had to run more ore just to break even. There was another problem, too. See, as the mines went deeper, the materials around the gold flecks changed. This made it harder to separate the gold, and the old ways didn't work very well at all. So new and more complicated methods were tried, including one which used poison chlorine. In the 1880s, over at the Phoenix mine, they had an engineer named Adolph Tease. He made his own improvements in the chlorination process, improvements which worked well enough to be copied by a lot of other southern gold mines. Meanwhile, another country was getting interested in Tar Heel gold. Between 1880 and 1900, about 24 British mining companies did business in North Carolina. One of them owned Gold Hill. 2 others tried hydraulic mining, washing the gold out of the earth with thousands of gallons of high-pressure water. A few miles up the road, there was a place called Bilesville. Well, we can be thankful that the British decided to put in a big hydraulic operation there. That caused the name to be changed from Bilesville to the name of a town which is still around, New London. North Carolina gold was getting harder to find, but the fever, well, it was still here. Even Mr. Thomas Edison got interested for a while. He thought he'd found a way to separate gold from ore electrically. He stayed down here for a few months in 1890, but left disenchanted with gold mining and the southern Piedmont. There were new things tried at old mines, especially the Iola and Coggins mines in Montgomery County. The last big fling was at Gold Hill, thanks to Walter George Newman. For apparently good reason, Walter George didn't like to have his picture made. He came to Gold Hill in 1899 as president of Union Copper Company. With money he'd conned from northern stockholders, he revived the town and the mines. Gold Hill's population mushroomed overnight. When Union Copper started having money problems, Walter George somehow ended up as president of Gold Hill Copper, the town's other big company. Newman disappeared in 1915. Some say he was one step ahead of a mob of angry stockholders and miners. He died in New York in 1938, broke and alone. As one newspaper man put it, it likely did not surprise him. He'd been broke before. John Reed's mine had one last fling, too. In 1895, 3 men from Springfield, Ohio, bought the whole place. Oliver Kelly, Dr. Justin Lyle, and Kelly's son, Warren. Dr. Lyle moved to the Reed and became superintendent. Later, he'd sell out to the Kellys. They'd do their last shaft mining work here in 1912. But now, Lyle leased the creek mining rights to 4 local men. One of them was Jake Shin. On Thursday morning, April 9th, 1896, Jake Shin discovered the last big nugget ever found on John Reed's old place. That piece of gold weighed more than the one Conrad had found.
It's gold! It's gold!
The Great Depression of the 1930s brought hard times. Banks closed, money and jobs were scarce. Some folks came back to the Little Meadow Creek to pan for gold. They weren't trying to get rich. They were just trying to put a little food on the family table. But the gold industry in North Carolina was drying up, dying out. The machinery here at the Reed was sold for scrap during World War II. By the early 1960s, the last full-time gold mining operation in North Carolina had closed. Little Meadow Creek's pretty well played out, and you can't find any gold in the old underground workings. But here, and in other parts of the state's gold mining country, there are still those veins of white quartz rock. They go down hundreds, thousands of feet, and down deep, they're still laced with zinc, copper, silver, and gold. So, maybe the story old John Reed started isn't over after all.